again and knocked at the door with my foot. An eternity seemed to pass until about 1 a.m, when night watchman George Olney walked by on his rounds and asked Margaret what the commotion was about. He thought her story odd and pounded on the door, calling to Ma as he did so. The storefront remained dark and silent. The noise in the street had now attracted the attention of John Murray, a pawnbroker who lived next door. Appraised of the situation, he hopped a wall into the Ma's back garden and saw a light flickering in an upstairs window. He entered through the shop's back door. "Ma," he called. "Ma, your shutters aren't fastened." Silence. He walked up the stairs and found a lit candle on the landing. He picked it up, and in its pallid light noticed the 2 doors of the chamber in which Mr. Ma usually slept were open. Decorum stopped him from peering into the room. He went back downstairs to look in the shop and stumbled into a gore-splattered nightmare. 6 feet from the bottom step, he found the Ma's errand boy, 14-year-old James Gowan, lying on his face, with his brains knocked out, part of them actually covering the ceiling and blood on the wall and counter. In a fit of terror, he staggered towards the door and found Celia face down in a widening pool of blood. A crowd of onlookers, aware by now something was amiss, loitered outside the shop. They drew closer as the door swung open, and Murray, his pale face gleaming in the candlelight, appeared in the entrance. "For God's sake, come in," he cried, "and see what dreadful murder is here." The crowd pushed forward into the shop. They stepped over Celia's mangled and bleeding body and saw the errand boy lying near the back. Timothy Ma lay behind the counter, bleeding very much about the head. They went in search of the baby, Timothy Jr., and descended the stairs to the basement kitchen. He lay there dead in his crib, blood seeping from his mouth and throat. Margaret, seeing the horror, began to scream. The coroner's inquest took place at the Jolly Sailor pub across the street from the murder house on the afternoon of Tuesday, 10th of December. Surgeon William Salter, having examined the bodies, testified as to his findings and detailed a savagery that went far beyond initial newspaper reports. Timothy Ma the Younger had the left external artery of the neck entirely divided. From the left side of the mouth, across the artery, the wound was at least 3 inches long. There were several marks of violence on the left side of the face. Cecilia Ma, the wife, had the left side of the cranium fractured and the temple bone totally destroyed. Timothy Ma the Elder had his nose broken. The occipital bone was fractured, and the mark of a violent blow was over the right eye. James Gowan, the apprentice boy, had several contusions on the forehead and nose. The occipital bones were shattered dreadfully, and the brains were partly protruded and partly scattered about. Margaret Jewell, asked to recount that awful evening, was so much convulsed by her feelings that she fainted away, and every effort to restore her was used for a considerable time without effect. She was not examined further. The jury, having visited the murder scene, viewed the bodies and listened to the testimony of watchman George Olney and neighbour John Murray, returned a verdict of wilful murder against some persons unknown. The inquest did nothing to elucidate the who and why, but the crime was not without its clues. The killer or killers left in the house a bloody 8-pound ship carpenter's maul, a hammer-like tool with the head rounded at one end for pounding in ship bolts and sharpened to a point at the other for driving the bolt deeper beneath the surface of the wood. A 20-inch iron-ripping chisel was also found in one of the bedrooms, but it was clean. An immense crowd showed up for the Ma family funeral at St. George in the East on Sunday, 15th of December. Mourners lined the route from the Ma's shop to see the murdered family conveyed to the dreary mansions of mortality. Those assembled in the church bowed their heads at the urging of Reverend Dr. Farrington, but could not resist the impulse.